Afghanistan is a country in the middle of Asia. It is a land of high mountains and dry deserts. Big mountains like the Hindu Kush run through it. These mountains are like a wall. They divide the north from the south. This geography is very important. It has shaped the country's history for a very long time. It makes it hard to travel from one part of the country to another. This is why different regions have their own ways of life. People in the mountains live differently from people in the plains. The land itself has taught the people to be strong and independent. It is a tough land, but it is also a beautiful one. The location of Afghanistan is special. It sits where South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East meet. Think of it as a bridge. This bridge connects different worlds. For thousands of years, traders and travelers have crossed this land. They brought goods like silk from China. They brought spices from India. These goods traveled west towards Europe. This famous route was called the Silk Road. Afghanistan was a key part of this road. Many cities grew rich because of this trade. They became centers of learning and art. This location made Afghanistan important to many powerful empires. Because it is a crossroads, many people have wanted to control Afghanistan. It is a strategic place. If you control Afghanistan, you can influence all the regions around it. You can control the trade routes, you can watch your enemies. This is why big empires have always been interested in this land. From ancient Persians to modern superpowers, many have tried to conquer it. They saw Afghanistan not just as a country, but as a prize, a piece on a giant chessboard. This has brought much conflict to the land. The people of Afghanistan have seen many armies come and go. This history of being a crossroads has made Afghanistan a very diverse place. Many different peoples have passed through, some of them stayed. They brought their languages, their religions, and their cultures. This mix has made the country a rich tapestry of traditions. You can see this in the faces of the people. You can hear it in the different languages they speak. It is a place where many stories meet. The story of Afghanistan is the story of the world passing through it. It is a story of meetings, of trade, of ideas, and also of war. This is the destiny of a land that lies at the heart of the world. Long before modern times, great empires ruled the land we now call Afghanistan. One of the first was the Achaemenid Empire from Persia. They arrived more than 2,500 years ago. They built roads and cities. They made the area a part of their vast kingdom. Then came a famous conqueror from the west. His name was Alexander the Great. He came from Greece with a powerful army. He marched through the mountains and valleys. He fought fierce battles against the local tribes. Alexander wanted to build a new world, a mix of Greek and Eastern cultures. He founded several cities, some named after himself, like Alexandria in Arachosia, which is now Kandahar. After Alexander, his empire broke apart. The Greco-Bactrian kingdom rose in the north of Afghanistan. This was a special time. Greek art and ideas mixed with local traditions. You can still see this in the coins and statues from that period. They show kings who look Greek but also have local features. Buddhism also came to Afghanistan during this time. It spread from India. Great statues of Buddha were carved into the mountainsides. The most famous were the giant Buddhas of Bamiyan. They stood for centuries as a sign of peace and faith. They showed how different beliefs could live together in this land. Another great empire was the Kushan Empire. The Kushans were a people from Central Asia. They created a huge empire that stretched from Afghanistan into northern India. Their rule was a time of great prosperity. The Silk Road trade was at its peak. Gold, spices, and silk flowed through Kushan cities like Bagram. This city was a treasure house. Archaeologists found ivory from India, glass from Rome, and lacquerware from China there. The Kushans were tolerant rulers. They supported different religions, including Buddhism, Hinduism, and Zoroastrianism. They created a golden age where many cultures came together and flourished. This long history of empires left deep marks on Afghanistan. Each one brought new people, new ideas, and new ways of life. The land was not just conquered, it was changed. It absorbed parts of every culture that came through. This is why Afghan culture is so rich and complex. It has roots in Persia, Greece, India, and Central Asia. The ancient ruins tell this story. They are silent witnesses to a time when Afghanistan was a center of the world. A place where civilizations met not only to fight, but also to trade, to learn, and to create something new together. This ancient past is the foundation of the Afghan identity. A new chapter in Afghanistan's history began with the arrival of Islam. In the 7th century, Arab armies brought the new faith from the west. The process was slow. It took many years for Islam to spread across the rugged land. It was not just a change of religion, it was a change in everything. A new language, Arabic, came with the faith. It became the language of religion and science. A new system of laws and government was introduced. Cities like Balkh and Herat, which were already ancient, became important centers of Islamic learning. They attracted scholars, poets, and artists from all over the Muslim world. This period is often called the Islamic Golden Age. It was a time of great discovery and creativity. Afghan cities played a big role in this era. Thinkers from this region made huge contributions to science and philosophy. For example, the famous scholar Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, lived and worked here for a time. His books on medicine were used in Europe for centuries. Poetry also flourished. The city of Herat became famous for its beautiful miniature paintings. Rumi, one of the most beloved poets in the world, was born in Balkh. His words about love and faith still touch people's hearts today. Several powerful Islamic dynasties rose from the land of Afghanistan. One of the most important was the Ghaznavid Empire. Its capital was Ghazni, a city in the east. From there, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni built a vast empire. He was a great patron of the arts and sciences. He invited hundreds of poets and scholars to his court. He built beautiful mosques and gardens. The Ghaznavids were followed by the Ghurids, who came from the mountains in the center of Afghanistan. They also built a large empire. They are famous for their architecture, like the Minaret of Jam, a tall, beautiful tower standing alone in a remote valley. This era shaped Afghanistan in a profound way. Islam became the central part of the country's identity. It united many of the different tribes and peoples under one faith, but it was not a single, uniform Islam. The faith mixed with local customs and traditions. This created a unique Afghan version of Islam. The art, the music, the social rules, everything was influenced by this new faith. The mosques and shrines built during this time are still important places of worship today. The legacy of this golden age is a source of pride. It reminds Afghans of a time when their land was a beacon of civilization and knowledge. The peace and prosperity of the Islamic Golden Age were shattered in the 13th century. A fearsome new power came from the east. They were the Mongols, led by their brilliant and ruthless leader, Gengis Khan. The Mongols were skilled horsemen and warriors. They swept across Asia, creating the largest land empire in history. When they came to Afghanistan, they brought destruction on a scale never seen before. They were angry because a local ruler had killed their envoys. Gengis Khan wanted revenge. His armies came like a storm, a force of nature that no one could stop. The Mongol invasion was a catastrophe for Afghanistan. They destroyed entire cities. Famous centers of learning like Balkh and Herat were turned into ruins. The Mongols burned libraries, broke down mosques, and killed thousands of people. Witnesses wrote that they left behind pyramids of skulls. They also destroyed the ancient irrigation systems, the canals that brought water to the farms. This was a devastating blow. Large areas of fertile land turned back into desert. It took centuries for the land and the population to recover. The memory of this destruction is still alive in the stories and poems of the people. After the initial destruction, Afghanistan became part of the vast Mongol Empire. The land was ruled by descendants of Genghis Khan. Life slowly began to return to normal. Cities were rebuilt and trade routes were reopened. The Mongols, who were great traders, made the Silk Road safe again. But things were different. The old world was gone. The cultural and scientific brilliance of the past was dimmed. The Mongol rulers brought their own laws and customs. Over time, they converted to Islam and mixed with the local population. They became part of the complex fabric of Afghanistan. A new conqueror with Mongol heritage emerged a century later. His name was Timur, also known as Tamerlane. He made Herat the capital of his new empire. Under Timur and his successors, Herat experienced a great revival. It became one of the most brilliant cultural centers in the world. This period is called the Timurid Renaissance. Artists, poets, and architects created magnificent works. The famous painter Behzad worked in Herat. They built beautiful mosques and tombs that still stand today. This shows the resilience of the Afghan spirit. Even after the terrible storm of the Mongol invasion, culture and beauty could bloom again. In the 19th century, Afghanistan found itself caught between two giant empires. To the south was the British Empire, which controlled India. To the north was the Russian Empire, which was expanding into Central Asia. Both empires were, pretty suspicious of each other. Each one thought the other wanted to take over more land. Afghanistan was right in the middle. The British and the Russians started a long, secret struggle for influence over the country. This struggle was called the Great Game. It was a game of spies, secret deals, and political pressure. Afghanistan was not a player, it was the board on which the game was played. The British were worried that Russia would invade India through Afghanistan. To prevent this, they decided to invade Afghanistan themselves. They wanted to put a friendly ruler on the throne in Kabul. This led to the First Anglo-Afghan War in 1839. At first, the British army succeeded. They captured Kabul and installed their chosen king, but the Afghan people did not accept a foreign ruler. Tribes from all over the country rose up against the invaders. The British found themselves in a hostile land. The winter of 1842 was terrible. The British army tried to retreat to India, but they were attacked in the mountain passes. Almost the entire army was destroyed. It was a huge disaster for the British Empire. The British did not give up. They tried again about 40 years later. This was the Second Anglo-Afghan War. This time they were more successful in military terms. They won the battles, but they learned a hard lesson from the First War. They realized that they could not rule Afghanistan directly. It was just too difficult and too expensive, so they made a deal. They recognized an Afghan ruler, Abdur Rahman Khan. He would be in charge of his own country. But he had to let the British control his foreign policy. This meant Afghanistan could not make deals with Russia or any other country without British permission. This period had a lasting impact on Afghanistan. The British drew a new border between Afghanistan and British India, which is now Pakistan. This was called the Durand Line. It was drawn in 1893. The line cut right through the lands of the Pashtun tribes. It divided families and clans. This border has been a source of tension and conflict ever since. The Great Game also taught Afghan rulers to be suspicious of foreigners. They learned that powerful countries would always try to use Afghanistan for their own purposes. This experience shaped the country's politics for the next century. It created a deep desire for independence and a distrust of outside powers. In the early 20th century, Afghanistan began to build its own modern state. A new king, Amanullah Khan, came to power in 1919. He wanted his country to be fully independent. He declared war on the British for the third time. The Third Anglo-Afghan War was short. Neither side won a clear victory. But in the end, the British were tired of fighting. They signed a treaty that recognized Afghanistan's full independence. For the first time, Afghanistan was free to choose its own path, without foreign control. King Amanullah became a national hero. He is remembered as the king who brought true freedom to his people. Amanullah Khan was a modernizer. He had big dreams for his country. He traveled to Europe and was very impressed by what he saw. He wanted to make Afghanistan a modern nation like Turkey. He introduced many reforms. He opened new schools for both boys and girls. He built new roads and hospitals. He created a new constitution and tried to change the laws. He encouraged people to wear Western clothes. He wanted to change things very fast. He believed these changes were necessary for progress. He wanted to pull his country out of the past and into the modern world. But many people in Afghanistan were not ready for these rapid changes. The country was very traditional. Most people lived in villages and followed the old ways. They were led by religious leaders and tribal elders. They saw the king's reforms as a threat to their culture and their religion. They did not like the new laws or the new schools for girls. They saw Western clothes as a sign of disrespect. Soon, tribes in different parts of the country began to rebel against the king. The resistance became so strong that Amanullah Khan was forced to leave the country in 1929. His dream of a modern Afghanistan had failed. The fall of Amanullah Khan showed how difficult it was to change Afghanistan. The country was a complex mix of different groups. The power was not just in the capital, Kabul, it was also with the tribes in the countryside. For the next few decades, other rulers tried to be more careful. They introduced changes slowly. They tried to balance modernization with tradition. For a while there was peace and stability. In the 1960s, Kabul became a modern city. It was known as the Paris of Central Asia. But under the surface, the tensions between the modern city and the traditional countryside remained. This division would later explode into open conflict. In 1978, a dramatic event changed Afghanistan forever. A small group of Afghan communists took power in a violent coup. They were supported by the Soviet Union, the big communist country to the north. This new government tried to make radical changes, just like King Amanullah had. They wanted to create a socialist state. They tried to change land ownership and family traditions. They used force against anyone who opposed them. Once again, the people in the countryside rose up in rebellion. They saw the communist government as godless and foreign. A holy war, or jihad, was declared against the government in Kabul. The rebellion grew stronger every day. The communist government was losing control of the country. The Soviet Union became very worried. They were afraid that an Islamic state in Afghanistan would influence the Muslims in their own country. So, in December 1979, the Soviet Union made a fateful decision. They sent their army into Afghanistan to support the communist government. They thought it would be a quick operation. They thought they could crush the rebellion and leave. They were wrong. The invasion turned into a long and brutal war. It lasted for 10 years. The Afghan resistance fighters were called the Mujahideen. They were not a single army. They were many different groups, based on tribes and regions. They fought fiercely against the powerful Soviet army. They knew the mountains and valleys. They used guerrilla tactics. They hid in the mountains and attacked the Soviet convoys. The war was very destructive. Soviet planes bombed villages. Millions of Afghans were killed. Millions more fled the country as refugees. They went to neighboring countries like Pakistan and Iran. The country was filled with landmines. The war destroyed much of the progress that had been made in the previous decades. The Mujahideen were not alone. They received help from other countries. The United States, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan saw the war as a chance to fight the Soviet Union. They gave money and weapons to the Afghan fighters. One of the most famous weapons was the Stinger missile. It could shoot down Soviet helicopters. This helped to turn the tide of the war. After 10 years of fighting, the Soviet Union realized it could not win. The war was too costly in soldiers and money. In 1989, the last Soviet soldiers left Afghanistan. The Mujahideen had won. They had defeated a superpower, but the victory came at a terrible price. The country was in ruins, and the long war had created a new generation of fighters. After the Soviets left, the Afghan people hoped for peace. But it did not come. The Mujahideen groups that had fought together against the Soviets now started fighting each other. They fought for control of Kabul and the country. This led to a devastating civil war in the early 1990s. The capital city, Kabul, was destroyed by the fighting. The country fell into chaos. It was during this time of chaos that a new group emerged. They called themselves the Taliban. They were mostly young Pashtun students from religious schools in Pakistan. They promised to bring order and enforce a strict version of Islamic law. The Taliban quickly took control of most of the country. They captured Kabul in 1996. They did bring an end to the civil war, but they imposed very harsh rules. They banned music and television. They forced men to grow beards. Women suffered the most. They were not allowed to work or go to school. They had to cover themselves from head to toe in a burqa. The Taliban also gave shelter to international terrorist groups. The most famous of these was Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. It was from Afghanistan that Al-Qaeda planned the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. The 9/11 attacks brought the world's attention back to Afghanistan. The United States demanded that the Taliban hand over Osama bin Laden. The Taliban refused. In October 2001, the United States and its allies launched a military campaign. They quickly removed the Taliban from power. A new Afghan government was formed, led by Hamid Karzai. This began a new era for Afghanistan, the American era. Billions of dollars poured into the country. The goal was to rebuild Afghanistan and create a stable, democratic state. It was a time of great hope and great promises. For the next 20 years, there was progress. New schools and hospitals were built, girls were able to go to school again, women entered the workforce and politics, a new Afghan army and police force were trained, there were elections and a new constitution. But the war never really ended. The Taliban regrouped and began a long insurgency against the new government and the foreign forces. The fighting continued, especially in the countryside. Corruption was a huge problem. Many Afghans felt that the new government was weak and did not serve the people. The American era was a time of both progress and peril, of building and of fighting. The long history of Afghanistan is filled with war and hardship. From the Mongols to the Soviets to the recent conflicts, the Afghan people have known great suffering. Generations have grown up knowing only war. The land is scarred by conflict. The economy is fragile. The political situation has often been unstable. It is easy to look at this history and feel sad. It is easy to see only the problems and the destruction. Many dreams have been broken, many promises have not been kept. The journey has been long and very difficult. But that is not the whole story. The story of Afghanistan is also one of incredible strength and resilience. The Afghan people have never been easily conquered. They have a deep love for their land and their independence. They have fought against the world's greatest empires and survived. This strength comes from their culture, their faith, and their strong family and tribal ties. They have learned to endure the hardest of times. They have rebuilt their cities and their lives again and again. This enduring spirit is the true heart of Afghanistan. It is a spirit that does not give up. The culture of Afghanistan is a testament to this spirit. It is a culture that has absorbed many influences, but has always remained unique. It is in the beautiful carpets that women weave, telling stories in their patterns. It is in the powerful words of their poets who speak of love and loss. It is in the sound of their music and the taste of their food. It is in the hospitality they show to guests, even when they have little themselves. These traditions have been passed down through the generations. They're a source of identity and pride. They are the things that war cannot destroy. The future of Afghanistan is uncertain. The challenges are still very large. Today is June 24, 2025, and the path ahead is not clear. But there is always hope. This hope lives in the people themselves. It lives in the young generation that wants a better life. It lives in the courage of Afghan women who fight for their rights. It lives in the desire of every Afghan for peace and stability for their children. The story of Afghanistan is not over. The people have faced many dark nights, but they continue to look for the dawn. Their journey through time shows that they have the strength to face whatever comes next and to keep building their future.